One of the things that's really been hanging up our economic situation in the United States are the prices going up, skyrocketing. And one of the things that aggravates me the most are gasoline prices. And now there's a plan to control the situation and have the prices come down. And I want to let you know how that works. U.S. President Joe Biden announced the release of 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve on Tuesday of this past week, as his administration seeks to combat rising oil and gasoline prices ahead of the busy oil season, which are the end of the year trips. The barrel release plan will include 32 million barrels of oil as an exchange over the next few months, releasing oil that will eventually return to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the next few years, as well as 18 million barrels that will be an acceleration towards the next several months of an oil sale that Congress had previously authorized. The president made his remarks hours before leaving for a break in Massachusetts, and President Biden said that the administration's actions will not solve the problem of high gasoline prices overnight. It's going to take a while for all these billions of barrels to get into the system and finally be turned into gasoline and ready to go into your vehicles. He claims it's going to take a little time, but before long, you will see how the price of gasoline is going to drop when you fill up your tank. And in the longer term, we will reduce our dependence on oil as we switch to clean energy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, and I want to clarify this because a lot of us get confused. You think, okay, a clean energy means he wants me to buy an electric vehicle. Not necessarily, because he knows that everybody can't get rid of their gas vehicles overnight. And anyway, there's not enough charging stations around the country. And on top of that, if you live in an apartment complex and you have to park in the street, how the heck are you going to charge your car up? Or even if you have a parking space in an underground garage, most of them don't have electrical outlets. So there's a lot of work for that to happen. But what can happen is you can start changing industry that consumes an enormous amount of petroleum and oil. And that's going to help reduce our dependence and eventually bring down the cost of gasoline, because what happens is you're going to be producing more gasoline and there's going to be less demand. So you know how it works. There's 10 people that want to buy a product and a store has 10,000 in the back room, and to get rid of it, what do? Put it on special, right? So more people, the two people are not going to get rid of the inventory, so you lower the price so you can get enough people in to get rid of that inventory. Well, that's the way everything works. And that's the way petroleum is going to work. You have a certain amount of distilleries and you have a certain amount of processing plants that are going to have to produce a certain amount of oil to be able to pay costs. And that alone is going to keep the petroleum and gasoline flowing, and hopefully it'll bring prices down eventually. The statement aims to address the lack of oil supply around the world, but its actual effect may be limited. In 2019, the U.S. oil use was about 20.5 million barrels of oil per day. And in 2020, it was used on average of about 18.1 million barrels per day. It went down because of COVID-19. according to the Energy Information Administration from the Department of Energy, that produced the reports that oil use was lower in 2020, as I explained, due to COVID-19. The decision comes amid recognition that inflation and high gasoline prices are directly related to Biden's political future. Because every time you go to the gasoline, I was talking to my son the other day, and he has a little business, and in the business he has delivery trucks, a dozen or so. It's not a huge business, and he's complaining. It's like, Dad, I go to the gas station, and I have my employees go to the gas station to fill up our trucks, and it's $100, Dad. I can't believe it. And this didn't happen under Trump. It's happening under Biden. So he says to me, I'm not going to vote for Biden. Look at what he's doing to me. I can't stand this. And I laughed. I said, Biden? What does Biden do? Biden doesn't control the consumption of petroleum and oil? Presidents don't run the economy of the country, son. What's wrong with you? I mean, it's okay for you to blame somebody, but blame the right people. Don't blame the wrong people. He's trying to resolve it by releasing, and what he's doing is only temporary. And he's going to reduce some barrels, but don't think that that's going to solve the problem on the long run. In recent weeks, Biden had privately warned that turning to the reserve would not do much to alleviate the current problem, but some Democratic lawmakers argued that it could provide temporary relief at gas stations. And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was one of the Democrats pushing to get him to release the oil, and apparently it happened. Finally happened. So the announcement reflects the president's commitment to do everything in his power, which is very limited, to reduce the cost to the American people for a period of time and continue our strong economic recovery, which is what the White House press person was saying over the news. We're taking action. Much of the reason Americans are facing high gasoline price is because oil-producing countries and large companies have not increased oil supplies quickly enough to meet the demand, and the lower supply translates into an increase in oil prices worldwide. Well, yeah. I mean, it went from 20 some odd million barrels to 18. So you can't keep on producing 20 when you're only selling 18, so you had to reduce, and now they got to increase back to 20. But the problem is getting the workers. We have 8 million job vacancies in the United States, and some of them are in the oil industry. So unless you get the workers to run all the equipment and deliver, that's another thing. It's getting drivers to deliver the gasoline. There's a shortage of drivers because a lot of people were laid off, and driving is a very difficult job. They don't want to go back to it, so they found other ways of making money, opened up their little business selling whatever. So all this adjustment of COVID-19 is causing this incredible problem. And that's part of what I'm explaining it to you, because I had to explain it to my son over the phone for 20 minutes. I don't know that I got through because he was really upset, but at least he knows. At least he knows. Now, it's unclear to what extent the White House effort will immediately affect the prices. We'll see. But at least they're doing something, right? Instead, the move may largely act as a signal to OPEC nations and Russia that the U.S. is serious about taking steps to lower prices after those nations were reluctant to increase oil production. Now, that's another thing. You know, right now, there's a problem between Biden and Putin, because Putin wants to expand, and he's a big oil producer. The whole Russian economy is based on oil. Take away the oil, and they're a banana republic with millions of people. But he wants to invade Ukraine. He wants to increase the amount of territory he has. Ukraine's a sovereign nation. It's like us deciding we want to expand. Let's invade Canada. Why not? We speak the same language. Let's invade. Take it over. Get rid of the government. Now they're part of the United States. Well, the whole world's going to get upset over that. You can't do. The Canadians are not going to like it. And that's what's happening over there with the situation with Ukraine and the Soviet Union. Soviet Union doesn't exist. Russia and Putin. So here is Biden trying to let him know, increase the oil, but you better not attack Ukraine. And Putin's going, nah. I got you. I got you where I want you. You want oil? Better look the other way while I attack. And that's the argument right now. The back and forth and the menace and the phone calls and all the stuff going on. So this is complicated. It's not easy. So all you guys, when you're belly aching about the price, fine, I bellyache too, but at least understand why. Don't sit there like my son until I gave him a sermon on my cell phone for 20 minutes. At least know why, you know? And if you're a good American, you'll understand and go and you'll bite the bullet. Look, Biden officials have warned the Saudis for weeks, and that's another thing. We have a big issue with the Saudis because they murdered Khashoggi at one of the embassies, and the United States is really upset about that because he was an American citizen, a naturalized citizen, but he was an American citizen. And you know, they cut up his body and put him in bags and took him out of and then denied that they had anything to do with it. So that's another thing. The United States is sort of between two of the biggest oil producers, the Saudis and the Russians, and we have issues with both. So now you understand how politics and the cost of gasoline play a huge part in what you're paying at the pump. Plus COVID-19, which means that we had to reduce production from 20 to 18 million barrels. So Biden officials have warned that the Saudis for weeks that the U.S. would find alternative solutions if the price of crude exceeds $85 a barrel, as it did late last month. But Saudi Arabia has been adamant in its refusal to increase production. It's upset. The prince is angry because we're blaming him for the murder of Khashoggi, which he is. He ordered it, but he's upset. I'm a prince. Why are you criticizing me? Don't you see my robe? Don't you see who I am? Don't you see my throne? What are you talking about? You want oil? Wrongly, in the opinion of U.S. officials, by the way, U.S. officials think that Saudi Arabia shouldn't be adamant in refusing to increase production. Why? Because the United States needs it, so what do you expect them to say? So anyway, the ace up the United States sleeve is the possibility of U.S. reaching a nuclear deal with Iran, two officials said. And Iran is an oil producer. But you know what? What did Trump do when he went into the presidency? Because Barack Obama set up a deal with Iran that allowed us to get oil from Iran and Europe and everybody else. And what did Trump do? Immediately get rid of it. Dump the damn thing. Don't need it. Don't need it. Now look at the situation we're in now. The three biggest oil producing countries in the world, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Russia, and we got issues with all three. And you're bitching about the price at the pump? You better understand what's going on. Two government officials said that the concern of the Saudis is that the sanctions imposed on Iran will be reversed, which would allow the country to increase its oil production and compete with OPEC, which the Saudis basically run. The release of barrels will be done in coordination with several other countries such as China, India, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and the United Kingdom. Officials believe the coordinated effort could have a greater effect on lowering gas prices. Why do they have to include them? Because if all of a sudden there's more oil and they decide to increase their consumption or import and suck it up even faster, you know what happens when a store only has two of something and there's 10,000 people that want it. What do you think the store is going to do? Raise the prices? So there you go. So anyway, as of a couple of weeks ago on Friday, there were 604.5 billion barrels of oil in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, according to the Department of Energy. And the release of oil barrels would be sometime in December. I'm doing this program in December, so it's just about the time that they're going to be releasing the barrels. The release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve will release barrels of oil to the market they're talking about, now this is the government saying, in the mid to late December. So you'll feel it maybe when Santa Claus comes, you'll go to the pump that day or the day after or sometime between Christmas and New Year's, you might see the oil prices fall 10 cents or 20 cents a gallon. I don't know. In a briefing with the reporters last Tuesday, senior officials said the administration is focused on making sure its efforts lead to relief for Americans at gas stations. Now, I just explained to you what's going on here, which is a lot more difficult than releasing a few gallons of oil. We gotta fix the problem. Our political issues with Iran, with Saudi Arabia, and with Russia, or this is not going to get resolved. As soon as the barrels are sucked up, and they're going to get sucked up like boom, 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. I don't think that much, and then the prices are going to go up again. And what's going to happen here? Well, the United States is going to have to do something. So we see our actions here as two sides. First, these are the words of the government. By making sure that the price of oil is going down, reflecting the fact that we have to have a supply that matches the demand. Yeah, right. Well, I want to go to Mars, so I'm gonna build my own plane in the backyard. I mean, wishful thinking. This is serious, and it's political. You got to resolve the problems with Russia, Saudi Arabia, or Iran, or this is not going to get resolved. On top of that, and we also have problems with Venezuela, who's the biggest oil producer in the Americas. There you go. And you're wondering why we have problems at the pump. Oh my goodness. So anyway, continuing with what the government says, they like to feed you a lot of bullshit so you won't feel too bad. I'm telling you the truth. Okay? What you hear from government sometimes is spin. They have to tell you what you want to hear so you'll calm down. So, but also making sure that those savings that they're going to pass on to consumers, said an administration official, that you'll enjoy them and that you'll see the difference. The president directed the Federal Trade Commission to investigate and verify if there are any anti-consumer practices in the oil and gasoline industry that reflect a consolidation. But we expect the industry to pass these savings on to consumers as much as possible. So in other words, when they release all these gallons, they want to make sure that the industry doesn't suck it up and keep on selling at the high prices and now it's just sweet profits. They want to make sure they pass on the savings. So they're going to be sending people around to nose around and make sure that the prices of the pump drop a little bit. Don't expect them to drop $1 a gallon, all right? I'm telling you that right now. Forget it. And if a miracle happens and that happens, don't expect it to last more than 2 or 3 weeks, but I doubt it. So anyway, the news media has been asking the administration if it sees this resolve as a short-term or long-term solution. If they expect a drop in oil prices, senior administration official pointed to other actions taken by the administration. And he said, we think this is an immediate challenge. In other words, you notice the word immediate. In other words, it's temporary. Immediate means right now. This is a problem right now. But they choose their words. They're very smart. They know how to communicate. This is an immediate challenge that we face as we come out of the global pandemic. In other words, COVID's at fault, and the solution's only right now. And supply has not kept up. We think this fits exactly this scenario, said a senior official. Well, yeah, right. So what? He's not giving you a solution. He's just telling you the facts. On pricing, though, he said this person pointed to other efforts by the administration that today's announcement is a culmination of those efforts. But he didn't tell us what those efforts are. And just between you and me, on the long term, if he doesn't solve the problem with Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Putin in Russia, nothing's going to happen. So of course, we think that it's not only important that oil prices fall, but that prices fall at gas stations. So we're also as focused on making sure the prices pass quickly to consumers, and they're concentrating on checking the price dropping drastically at Costco, Walmart, BJ's. They're not mentioning Sam's Club here, but I'm sure that includes them, to get the price of gasoline cheap. Many news media outlets are reporting on Monday that Biden had privately informed that tapping into the reserve wouldn't do much to alleviate the current problems, though some lawmakers have argued it could provide a little relief. Pressed by a reporter on which the expectations for the public should be, a senior official argued that they believe it should be soon. What that means something the end of the year. Another official noted that the market is dynamic and admitted that the administration cannot control everything. Well, of course. What we have with these 50 million barrels with the exchange and the sale are flexible tools for the next few months. Few months means 8 weeks, maybe. A period of time for us to make the necessary adjustments to face the dynamic market. In other words, to face the fact that we're going to have to get back to high prices because we're not going to be doing this again for a while. It's going to take over a year to get that reserve back up to where it was. Why? Because everything is not under our control. In other words, our hands are tied. All we can do is release some oil and that's it. We don't control. This is a democracy, not an autocracy. It's that we can't order companies and gas stations and tell them what price they're going to sell it for. The national average of gasoline prices as of a short while ago is significantly higher than the average at the same time period last year, when many people were not driving or traveling as much. So this is due to the pandemic. That's the thing now. Blame the pandemic for everything. I've just explained to you that this is a lot more serious, but they're not going to get into that. It's going to get too complicated. Then the press is going to be asking too many questions, and they don't want to be answering them. Because imagine in the middle of a press conference, and how are you going to deal with Putin so he'll deal with more oil? How are you going to deal with Iran after Trump turned around and massacred their economy? You think they want to help ours? They devastated their economy because Trump wanted to act like a bully because he didn't want Obama's program to succeed. Why? Because Obama was a minority president, and this is a racist. Let's get to the truth here. I mean, why would you take away something like that would have benefited the country? Because it was based on racism, and here we are sucking oil prices because of it. Oh, I gotta tell you, boy, democracies are beautiful, but when we make mistakes and we put the wrong people in power that don't think, they just act and think later. When it's too late, it's already, the damage is done, which is what the problem was with the previous administration. Here we are sucking up the consequences. I love this country. It's exciting. Yes, it's a pain in the butt once in a while, but it's exciting. You can't get bored in the United States, okay? It's impossible to get bored. Anyway, welcome to Radio Labio's English program. Anyway, I'm Juan Andres. You can find us on more than 60 sites on the internet where you can listen to our podcast. Just ask Google Radio Labio and pop will show up. And on my behalf, as well as my colleague Ivan Encinas and our manager and fellow on-air personality Francisco Maldonado, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.